Namaskar friends, welcome to the third video of the third chapter of standard 11, that is plant kingdom, and here in this video we are going to study about bryophytes. In the previous video we have already discussed about basics of plant kingdom and their classification, basics and uses of alga, and different classes of alga is already studied. Now we are going to study in detail about the bryophytes. So, welcome. Welcome to Vigyan with Vishal Mulia. Welcome to Biology with Vishal Mulia. Welcome. Bryophytes include the various mosses and liverworts. These bryophytes are commonly growing in the moist shaded area in the hill region. They are known as amphibians of plant kingdom. When we say amphibians of plant kingdom, automatically one of the syntones is coming up and saying that do remember we are the amphibians of animal kingdom, and that syntone is nothing but the character having frog. We know very well frog belongs to amphibian class, belongs to plant kingdom. And whatever the characteristics are there with the amphibians of plant kingdom is the same with the animal kingdom. Like, because we are calling it amphibians of plant kingdom because they can survive on soil. They are living in the soil. But at the same time they are dependent on water for the sexual reproduction. This is the same characteristics of the class amphibians of animal kingdom. And here one can see it very well. Same in the case of bryophyte also. So they are rightly called amphibians of plant kingdom. They usually occur in damp and humid as well as shaded localities. They are having very important role in plant succession on the barren rock or barren soil. So ecologically they are having very important role. They are differentiated more in comparison to alga. They are differentiated into thallus and rhizoids. So little bit advancement is there in the tissue system, you can say in the internal structure, and one can see here the difference in the thallus as well as in the rhizoids. So it is bit advanced than the alga in the structural way. The thallus is either prostrate or erect. So plant body is like a thallus or thalloid plant body is there. Here you can see the prostrate thallus exemplified by Markensia, and here you can see the thallus which is erect in case of mosses. They are attached to the substratum with the help of unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. These rhizoids are root-like structure, but it is not exactly root, and these rhizoids can be unicellular. You can see here it is unicellular and there is no septa or there is no cell wall in between the rhizoids, while in the another case you can see the multicellular rhizoids very well. So they have rhizoids either unicellular or multicellular. They are lacking true root, true stem or true leaves, but they have the structure which is looking like root, looking like stem, looking like leaf. So they don't have original root, stem and leaves, but they have structure looking like root, stem and leaves. The main plant body is haploid in nature, so they have single set of chromosome and it is producing gametes. So that haploid phase is called as gametophytic phase, or we can say it is gametophyte. This haploid gametophyte is producing gametes. One can see here the anthridiophore, which is male gametophyte. Anthridiophore is having anthridial disc, and that is the male gametophytic structure, while here you can see the female gametophytic structure, that is archigoniophore having archigonial disc and archigonium. We will see it in detail. These sex organs are multicellular in nature. In comparison to alga, it is unicellular in nature. Here it is multicellular, and male sex organ is called anthridium. Here you can see the longitudinal section of anthridial branch, and in that anthridial branch we can see the enlarged antheridial cavity, and inside the antheridial cavity there is antheridium. This antheridium is producing biflagellate antherozoids. One can see here in animation how the biflagellate antherozoids are developing, and these antherozoids are having flagella, so they are motile. Female sex organ is called archegonium, and one can see this archegonium from the top view, and here we can see in the longitudinal section of the archegonial branch, and in that archegonial branch the arrow is showing presence of archegonium, and that archegonium is, if you go in detail, it is flask shape and it is having single egg, or you can say it is producing single egg. The antherozoids, which is motile, are released in the water. Do remember we discussed that for the sexual reproduction it is requiring water, and these antherozoids are released in water. They come in the contact with the archegonium and fertilize the egg cell. Here it is shown in the entire life cycle, but in the next you can see in the detail. See, the antherozoid is coming from the antheridium and it is entering in the archegonium and fertilizing the egg cell, resulting in the production of zygote. One can see here it very well in the form of animation how exactly the fertilization take place. The zygote is not going immediately for the reductional division, but it wait or it go for the dormancy for a while, and then it is ultimately producing multicellular body, to which we are calling it sporophyte. This sporophyte is multicellular structure, and this sporophyte is not free living. It is dependent on the gametophyte for the photosynthetic product, I mean the food, water and minerals. So in another way you can say sporophyte derives nourishment from the gametophyte. Some cells of the sporophyte is undergoing for the reductional division, that is meiosis, and producing haploid spores. That's why, because it is producing spore, we are calling it sporophyte, and this haploid spores ultimately germinate and give rise to gametophyte, and this gametophyte is ultimately continuing the entire life cycle. Though it is not discussed very much in the detail here, because too much detail or very much detail will be discussed very well in the NEET level videos. Here it is according to the textbook of our NCERT syllabus. Economic importance of the bryophyte can be discussed here. That is the next part. It is not having much of the economic importance. It is having little economic importance, but ecologically it is very much useful. Some of the mosses are providing food for the herbaceous mammals or birds or other animals. It can be used as a food, but it is of little importance. It is not much used in our country. The species of sphagnum, that is a moss which is providing peat, and peat is nothing but it is litter decomposed by hydrolysis of dead sphagnum thallus. Sphagnum, when go for a decomposition, it is producing peat. This peat can be used as fertilizer. It can be used as a fuel also, and because it is having capacity to hold or retain water for the long time, it can be used as packaging material for the transshipment or transport of the living material. Because it is having large capacity of water holding, it can hold water for the long time. Mosses along with the lichens are the first organism to colonize rock, and hence they are of great ecological importance. Earlier I said it is not having much economic importance, but it is having lot of ecological importance. They decompose the rock material and substrate, which is making suitable for the growth of higher plants. So there you can say along with the pioneering member lichen, they help in the greening or the making soil fertile, which is otherwise barren land. So for the rejuvenation of the soil or making the soil fertile, it can be used very well. Mosses are forming dense mat on the soil, and this dense mat are helping in the prevention of the soil erosion when the rain is falling. So ecologically it is having much important role. Economically they may not be having much important role. These bryophytes are classified into two parts according to our textbook: liverwort and mosses. In real, it is classified in three different parts: mosses, liverwort, and hornwort. But we will follow our textbook and we will begin with the liverwort. Otherwise, it is called Hepaticopsida also. But liverwort is usually growing in the moist and shady habitats. This moist and shady habitat can be bank of stream, can be marshy ground, can be damp soil, can be bark of tree, and even can be deep in the wood also. The plant body is thalloid in nature, and this thalloid in nature can be best exemplified with the help of Mertensia. Mertensia is the best representative of liverwort. Thallus is dorsoventrally flat, so we can say it is dorsiventral, and it is closely attached to the or approached to the substrate because it is forming mat like structure or covering the soil. The leafy member is having a teeny leaf like appendages in the row on the stem like structure. It is not stem, but it is stem like structure. Asexual reproduction is take place by fragmentation. One can see here how the fragmentation is going on, or it can be with the help of gymme. Singular is called gymma, or in the multiple we are calling it gymme. This gymme is a green multicellular and asexual bud-like structure. It is developed in the small receptacle called gymma cup, and this gymma cup is present or located on the thallus or on the thalli, you can say. Here we can see the enlarged version of gymma cup. Inside the green blinking part is gymma. When we take the longitudinal section, we can see that this gymma is attached with the help of in the receptacles, and when we enlarge this gymma, we can say it is multicellular structure which is containing stalk also. This gymma is attached from the parent body when the rain is there, or where some falling of the rain or accidental part is, it is detached, and once it is detached, it is germinating in the new plants and giving rise to new plants. So it is one of the way of the asexual reproduction. During the sexual reproduction, male and female sex organs may produce either on the same thalli. You can see here it is producing on the same thalli, or it can be there on the different thalli. Here you can see it is present on the different thalli. The sporophyte is differentiated into foot, sit, and capsule, and it is producing the spore by meiosis. Within the capsule, the spores are produced. These spores are germinating and giving rise to free living gametophyte, and this free living gametophyte is again continuing the entire life cycle of the liverwort, which we have already discussed earlier. Mosses are the predominant having a predominant stage in the life cycle, that is gametophytic stage, and this gametophytic stage is consisting two different stages. The first stage is protonema stage. Proto means first and nema means thread like structure. So protonema stage, which is directly developing from the spores, here you can see in the animation. Here you can see it in the photograph. This protonema stage is creeping, it is green in color, it is branched and having frequently filamentous stages. The second stage is leafy stage, and this leafy stage is developed from the secondary protonema as a lateral bud. This secondary stage or second stage is upright, slender and axis, which you can see in the photograph. The axis is having spirally arranged leaves. According to textbook it is leaves, but it is not leaves, it is leaf-like structure. They are attached with the soil through the multicellular and branch rhizoids, you can see here, and here you can see much more in detail. And in the diagram you can see how the below soil there is rhizoids present in the soil and holding the entire plant. This secondary structure or second stage is having sex organs, and these sex organs are going for the sexual reproduction, which we have already discussed earlier, or we are going to study much more in detail when we study the NEET related or NEET level videos. Vegetative reproduction in the mosses is taking place by fragmentation, which we can see here with the animation, or by budding of the secondary protonema. Here we can see the budding. Here you can see the blinking arrow is showing where the bud is, and how this bud is growing, that can be seen here in the animation. The sexual reproduction is there at the apex of the leafy shoot, and the male sex organ is antheridia, female sex organ is archegonia, and one can see here it is producing on the top of the or apex part of the leafy shoot. After fertilization, the zygote is developing into sporophyte, and that sporophyte is containing foot, setae and capsule. But the comparison to the liver rods, the sporophyte of moss is having more elaborate structure in comparison to the previous class we have already studied. This sporophyte is producing spores, and spores are formed after the meiosis, so the reductional division, and spores are haploid in nature. This mosses are having very elaborate mechanism of spore dispersal, so they can spread very well and having a special way to disperse their spores. The common example of mosses are Funaria, Polytrichum and Sphagnum. Here we can see the photograph of Funaria, next is the Polytrichum, and here we can see the Sphagnum, which is ultimately known as, or which is otherwise known as peat moss, or it is producing peat. We have already discussed about their economical uses. So this was all about the Bryophyte according to our textbook, and in the next video we are going to study about Pteridophytes. Till that, thank you very much. Dhanyavad. Jai Hind. Jai Bharat.